Have you ever been caught in a moment where you knew you had to defend your family, your values, or even your own reputation, but you didn't want to escalate the situation? What if you were in a room full of people and your teacher, the person in charge of your education and authority in the room, turned the spotlight on your family, publicly criticizing them? How would you react? Would you stay silent, or would you step up and say something that leaves everyone in the room stunned? That's exactly what happened one day to Barron Trump, the youngest son of former President Donald Trump. What he did next, in the face of public criticism, was not only unexpected, it left the entire classroom speechless. Let's dive into this powerful moment that showed Barron's maturity, leadership, and strength. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more compelling stories of strength and resilience. Today, we're going to talk about Barron Trump, who, despite growing up in the public eye, has managed to stay largely out of the spotlight. However, one day, Barron found himself in a very difficult and public situation when his teacher made a harsh critique about his family. What followed next wasn't just a sharp comeback. It was a lesson in standing up for your values with grace and poise. Stick around to see how Barron handled this intense moment of public criticism in a way that left a lasting impression on everyone around him. A high school classroom, the type of place where the air is filled with the usual chatter before the bell rings. The desks are arranged in neat rows, and the teacher, standing at the front, begins the day's lesson. Barron Trump, the son of the former president, sits in the back, quietly doing what every other teenager is doing, trying to focus on his schoolwork and just be another student among his peers. He wasn't there to be part of a political debate or to be the center of attention. Barron, unlike his parents, preferred to stay out of the spotlight. But as we all know, sometimes the spotlight finds you, even when you least expect it. On this particular day, Barron had no idea that a routine history lesson would turn into a moment that would define his character in front of his classmates. The teacher, known for his liberal political views and outspoken opinions on current affairs, began the class with a lecture on modern American politics. As he spoke about the political landscape and influential political families, the conversation quickly veered toward the Trump administration, and that's when the tension started to build. As the professor discussed political dynasties and their impact on the nation, he began to criticize the Trump family directly. With every word, the professor painted the Trump family as divisive figures who had contributed to the political polarization in America. The Trump family, the teacher said, has been one of the greatest sources of division in recent American history. Their policies, their actions, and their rhetoric have torn the country apart, and it's hard to ignore the impact they've had. The class, as you can imagine, shifted uncomfortably. Some students nodded in agreement. Others sat in silence, unsure of how to react. Barron, however, had heard these kinds of criticisms before. It was one thing to hear these attacks on his family from the media, but now, sitting in a classroom with his peers, hearing his father publicly criticized by someone in a position of authority, this felt personal. As the professor continued to speak, his words became even more pointed. And look at Barron Trump, growing up in a family like that. How could anyone, especially someone so young, avoid being influenced by such divisiveness? It's hard to imagine that he's unaffected by the environment he's been raised in. Now, in a situation like this, most teenagers would probably shrink back. Some might stay silent, while others could get defensive, maybe even angry. But Barron wasn't like most teenagers. He had been raised in a family where the ability to stay calm and collected was a necessity. Barron had spent most of his life in the spotlight, with cameras constantly following his family. So it wasn't as though he hadn't faced criticism before, but this time it was different. This time it was personal. Instead of remaining quiet, Barron stood up. The class went silent. Even the professor, who had been speaking with such authority, paused. What happened next was something that surprised everyone in the room. Barron spoke calmly, with a firm but measured voice. "With all due respect, sir," he began, "I don't think you should judge my family based on assumptions or personal opinions. Just because my father has made certain decisions doesn't mean we're all the same. I've been taught to think for myself, to make my own decisions, and I'm not here to be defined by my last name." His words hung in the air. Barron wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. He wasn't retaliating. He was simply pointing out a fact that the professor had missed. Just because Barron was the son of Donald Trump didn't mean he automatically adopted all the beliefs or actions of his family. He was his own person, with his own thoughts and ideas. After Barron's calm, yet powerful response, the professor, who had been so vocal moments before, stood there in silence. It wasn't a moment of anger or defensiveness. It was a moment of realization. The class was still as Barron's words continued to resonate through the room. The professor, taken aback, cleared his throat and said, "You're right, Barron. I shouldn't have made assumptions about you or anyone else based on their family." The students in the room, who had been unsure of how to react, now seemed to reflect on the situation. Some looked at Barron with newfound respect, while others seemed to consider the professor's words more carefully. Barron hadn't just defended his family. He had shown everyone in the room that it's possible to stand up for yourself, calmly and with dignity, without getting drawn into conflict. As the class continued, the energy had shifted. The teacher, although a strong critic of the Trump family, had been disarmed not by an angry response, but by Barron's maturity and ability to address the issue with grace. For the rest of the day, Barron's classmates spoke about the exchange, some expressing admiration for how he had handled the situation. Even the professor seemed reflective as he wrapped up the lesson. It wasn't just Barron defending his father that made an impact, it was the way he did it. By choosing to respond with calmness instead of confrontation, Barron not only defended his family, but also set an example for everyone in that classroom. He showed that leadership isn't about power or dominance. It's about standing your ground and speaking your truth without resorting to anger or violence. So what's the takeaway from this powerful moment? It's a reminder that sometimes when we're faced with criticism or opposition, the best way to respond is with confidence, clarity, and composure. Barron Trump didn't let the professor's harsh words throw him off balance. He didn't get defensive. Instead, he stood up for himself, for his family, and for the right to be judged based on who he was, not who people assumed he was. This moment serves as a powerful lesson that we all can learn from, whether you're in a classroom, a workplace, or simply dealing with criticism in your personal life. You don't need to engage in a shouting match to stand up for what you believe in. Sometimes the most powerful response is the one that comes with calm confidence and respect. Barron Trump's response that day wasn't just about defending his family. It was about showing that we can all stand up for ourselves and those we care about with dignity, no matter the circumstances. In a world where anger and conflict often dominate the conversation, Barron reminded us that calmness and clarity can be just as powerful, if not more so. His words left a lasting impression on everyone in that classroom, and now we can all take that lesson with us. Stand up for your values, speak your truth, and do so with grace. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.